The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production.
We are like international jet setters. Me and Mullins. Mullins and me. Mullins and I. Whatever the correct phrase is.
We're like the Griswolds.
The Griswolds?
Yeah.
Who were the Griswolds?
Vacation. Family vacation. European vacation. Christmas vacation. Wally World.
Is that
You've never seen?
No.
National Lampoon's Vacations?
No.
Oh, get National Lampoon's. European Vacation especially.
Can I watch it in front of the kids?
There's parts of European Vacation you might not want to. Although I suspect they've probably seen all that kind of stuff before.
I know, but they still get very embarrassed if they're watching stuff in front of their parents.
Yeah.
Even the sort of what you might call benign Top Gun had a scene in it where they had to hide behind the sofa. Oh, we don't want to watch that. No, they're kissing.
But
what I meant about the jet setting is I've just come back from France, and you're going out to Norway, and I was talking to Kev about the toll roads. They're not very patient in France, are they? And if you've got, I love France, but if you've got a car, right-hand drive car, when you get up to a toll booth, you have to do the run of shame around the bonnet to get the ticket, to get back in the car, to go to the next one, get out there, run around again, put the ticket in, get your credit card, and in the meantime, they're hooting at you, Kev.
Yeah, patience is not a virtue of the French. That is for sure, especially when you've got a UK sticker on the back of your car.
Oh, I know. So it might as well just draw Target on the back now. But Norway, now you're going to Norway, and you have tolls as well. You can drift through because it's all done by camera.
Yeah. Well, that's what happened when we went to Switzerland. Do you remember? We came back. We did have a lot of speeding fines, but the tolls were just paid by the car hire.
Yes, I remember the speeding fine. You were driving at that time as well. And I got the fine. But in France, I did worry because I got flashed a couple of times. And I said to one of the hosts who was looking after us at the other end, I said, I got flashed, can't believe it. And he said, don't worry about it, because the DVLA aren't talking to the French version of it and vice versa. Said, so none of your... He said, if there's one thing about Brexit that might be an advantage, if we could possibly find something, it would be that you can't get speeding fines. 150k all the way home.
The FujiCast.
Whoosh, there goes Kia. But you need to be careful in Norway, though, because I think they do talk to each other.
Yeah. No, all good. I've only got a little Picanto or something anyway. I don't think it can speed.
Is that it? Picanto?
I don't know. Whatever. Yeah.
You put your feet on the floor, it'll go faster.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Have you ever heard of...
and push along the road.
Have you ever heard of the sans permis?
Without permit.
Yeah. So they're these tiny little cars in France that are literally, well, I think they're 3-cylinder. They sound like a hairdryer with something loose inside it. The brakes on them are essentially bicycle brakes. They weigh absolutely nothing, and they're for people that can't pass their driving tests, because apparently it's really difficult in France, and also for folk that have they've got done for drink driving. Somebody, I think, got done for drink driving and thought, I'll invent the sans permis idea. And so if you've been done for drink driving, you can still drive, but you have to drive one of these.
Brilliant.
What kind of law is that?
They make you drive in a red jumpsuit as well.
They should do. Right, well, welcome to the show. It's, as always, your letters, your emails that you've sent in to click@fujicast.co.uk. Although, Kev, we need a few more. We're doing quite badly on that at the moment.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the Facebook thread, actually. Yeah, come on, people.
Listening figures are really good, which is nice to say. But with the letters, the emails are not as strong as they used to be in terms of number. So please keep sending them in. Facebook, of course, you do that by going to the what do you call it? The not tagged post. Oh, come on, Kev. I've been
pinned post.
Pinned post.
Pinned post at the top of the Facebook group. Yeah.
And we have a guest today, Robin Morgan, a multiple award-winning British journalist and editor who was the longest-serving editor-in-chief, no less, Kev, of the Sunday Times magazine from 1991 to 2009. Now, you might be saying to me, why are we speaking to a journalist? Because now life is very different. He licenses and many other things, actually, and deals in, I suppose you could say, photographs of icons. And it's big business, Kev.
What, like the Word icon and the Excel icon and Mail icon?
Well, icons as in iconography, people like Beckham.
Oh, I see.
Not the icons you're talking about.
He became even more iconic, didn't he, when old Lizzie's funeral?
I'm not sure.
Standing in the queue and queuing up for 13 hours like the rest of us.
Queen Elizabeth II, I think you should still refer to her as, Kev. I know you have a fondness for Queen Elizabeth.
She's always old Lizzie to me.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I still feel sadness for something that has been my constant in life. But you're right.
Yeah, that's what he said.
You're right. Beckham was there, wasn't he? It was no jump into the front of the queue as a Dave.
No, I think, good for him, basically. Some of them did, didn't they?
Can you imagine being stood in the queue next to David Beckham?
Well, I think that's what caused half the queue, because as soon as the press picked up on that, they were all over him, and then there was a massive bottleneck. They had to close the queue. They had to create a new queue where you queued up to join the queue, because Beckham had joined the queue.
No, really? Was that the real reason?
One of the reasons, yeah.
So there was a queue for Queen Elizabeth II, lying in state, obviously, and then a queue for David Beckham.
There was a queue for the line in state. Then there was a queue to queue up to try and stand next to David Beckham. Then they closed the main queue for Lion in State, and they opened a new queue where you queued up to join the queue for the main queue.
It's a good job we like queuing.
Yeah, that's a line in America.
A line.
If you're American, it's a line. It's a line.
They not call it a queue in America.
No, they call it a line.
Oh.
Yeah.
As in
join the line.
Line dancing.
No, that's very different.
That makes sense. That's why we have queue dancing. I always wondered why we had queue dancing.
Susie Q.
Right, have we got any bump to the fronts to do before we start this today?
Don't know. I normally leave that to you, but I can. I don't think so. Hang on a sec.
I don't recall seeing any.
No, we do not.
So no bump to the fronts.
No. By the way, with the bump to the front stuff, if you are a patron, thank you. We do have one new patron, which I'll do while we're just talking about this. Peter Foot. Thank you, Peter. Well done. You will, as a patron, you already know, and if you're not a patron, you won't get this, but we do the patron pop-up mini show, which is on the odd week. It's every 2 weeks. It's the week we're not on the main show, basically. So it's a shorter little mini show where we expand on a subject that was on in the main show.
I've already thought about the subject that we want to do, or I'd like to do next week. It's going to be a question on this show, so you'll hear a bit, but it's a discussion about charging for weddings when somebody cancels, and this could be anything, so it could be any form of contract, just happens to be a wedding when it's 2 weeks before the big day, and I want to expand that conversation. Right, okay, so we'll get to that, but my point was that if you do, you are more than welcome when you listen, so that will come to your patron in your inbox via email, and you are more than welcome to reply to that with a message on Patreon, and we will pick those messages up. So that's specific to those patron pop-ups. Perfect. There we go. I couldn't have made that more complicated if I tried, could I? Well, no, I thought you were doing very well. Pick Time is something we should mention right at the start. Thank you to the good folks at Pick Time for supporting us. Pick, P-I-C hyphen time. Mm-hmm. That's picktime.com, and we use them. We both use them. I use them. You use them. And in the last couple of weeks, I feel I've been a bit of I've never been an ambassador, Kev. I know you have. You've got medals for being an ambassador. But I've never been an ambassador, and even though I'm not officially a Pick Time ambassador, I feel I have been of late, because I've been showing everybody my Pick Time, as they've been saying, how do I actually show pictures to make them, look a bit more attractive than just sharing a load of files? Because that's what Pick Time is good at, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. It's brilliant. Well, I mean, we've discussed it. And also, by the way, you will get a free month with the code FujiCast in capitals. But yeah, I mean, for example, yesterday I had a order from, one of the things that I do is I set up an expiry email on my galleries. So after 1 year, they don't expire. They don't go anywhere. They stay online. But after 1 year, the clients get sent an email saying your gallery is going to expire, which in technical terms means that when they come to download the pictures again, it will just take a little longer because it does get put onto a kind of external drive, so to speak. Nothing really changes. So your gallery is expiring.
here's a 10% discount code if you so wish. And I had a couple of those expire in this because obviously we've only been really going again for a year since COVID. So a couple of those have kind of hit that 1 year process now. And one of them put a big old order in yesterday or the day before. Bought an album, a couple of prints, frame, in fact, as well. Got their 10% discount. So, and I set that up right at the beginning, that automation for the gallery, the anniversary, and it went. I didn't even think about it. I don't see those emails, and then I just got this email from the client going, "Oh, thanks for reminding us, and here's our order." Ooh.
See, it's such a simple thing. I've always felt a little bit. You're going to say, Neil, come on, business. Put your business hat on. You're going to say, but I've always felt a bit squeamish about saying. This is about to expire. Quick, last chance, 10% off if you do, blah, blah, blah. I probably need to be less squeamish about that, don't I?
Yep.
Yeah. Simple answer to that one. And you can do that through PickTime.
Yeah, you can. It's all the automations are what make it so powerful.
Anniversaries. It's anniversary of wedding, anniversary of events, anniversaries of birthdays, if you're using it for portraits. I mean, there's just so many uses, aren't there?
Yeah. Just a 1 year gallery expiring email, boom. There you go.
Done.
I'm very much looking forward to my next 6 months because there will be lots of galleries hitting that expiry time. And I'm going, yay!
Oh, Kev, can I can add that on now, can't I, really? I could just... Yeah. Because I didn't do it at the start. Yeah,
you go into the automations and you apply it. There's lots of different automations you can do. But yeah, that's one of them.
I know what I'm doing for the next week. Go through all my galleries. So pic-time.com. And
FujiCast in capital letters is your discount code.
Right. Questions, Kev. This isn't a question. This is kind of it's asking for a friend. And I really am. It's not because it's something I've done, because I can share what's happened to me in the past with regard to this. But I know you'll have some thoughts on this.
Is it about that funny growth on your bum?
No, it's not about that. That's
your friend's bum.
I've had Barney bite that off. No, this is about what happens when somebody cancels close to an event. Now, there are lots of events. There are wedding events, there are portrait events, commercial events, and not everybody, but for the most part, well, certainly with higher priced bookings, you tend to work by a contract or an agreement/contract. And this is interesting when somebody cancels with just a short amount of time to go. And I'm going to have to tiptoe a little bit through the tulips here because I don't want to release information about the client, although I'm going to have to say a few things to make it a little bit clearer what's gone on and why it's been cancelled. And I'm being careful about the person that's posed this question as well, i.e. non-gender specific. So if you have a booking, Kev, that you have got and it's contracted, and within your contract you say, if you cancel within a certain amount of days, you are still liable to pay X. If the event is cancelled because somebody has got quite a deep personal family reason for doing so, what would you do?
I wouldn't charge it. No, I wouldn't. So essentially, if it is a real kind of emotional turmoil, somebody's died, whatever, that kind of thing, then no, I would probably just say, I'm really sorry. Come back to me if and when you want to reorganize it and just take the hit. However, if it was a case of like, they just decided they couldn't afford to get married anymore, or they couldn't, or the groom has run off with a belly dancer from Turkey on his stag do or something like that. Then I'd be like, yeah, now you need to pay me.
So the hard-nosed Mullins with a contract in his hand, waving it in the air, saying, well, that's all right, but fresh air doesn't pay my mortgage or feed the kids.
Yeah, it depends on the circumstance. But if it's because I don't know, obviously you're not going to say, which is fine. But I don't know the circumstance. But like I said, if it's a real kind of emotional term, essentially, if it was something that I feel like if I was in the shoes of the person cancelling and it was, a real kind of tumultuous personal issue, then I wouldn't be chasing them for the money. No.
I have had a situation in the past. It wasn't a belly dancer from Turkey, but it was essentially that kind of situation where the groom cancelled with, I think it might have been even less than 2 weeks. And he worked in law, and he said to me, well, contracts aren't really worth what they're written on, so if you want to have a battle about this, I will. And
had they already paid though at that point?
Nope. He'd held back the money. It was very unusual because always a month before is the balance for me, always. Yeah. And although I've become a bit lax of that, of late with that over the COVID period, I am drawing that in now. I think we're going back to normal times on that. However, normal service, it would be a month before for the balance. And I thought it was dragging its feet a bit. And then it became very clear why. Now, I did try to chase that because I thought, no, the fact that you can't keep your what's it within your trousers, that's I'm afraid that's not going to feed the kids and keep me in a mortgage. So you can pay up, mister. But
he would never pay. And that's a fight just not worth having then probably. But had they already paid and he asked for the money back, I would say no. And if you want to go down the legal route and try and get it back, then absolutely. And if at the end of the day the lawyer says yes, you do have to give it back to him, then so be it. But you put the effort and legwork into that.
Now, I wanted to just introduce something else here that I'm really, really sketchy on, and it is a conversation that we've had. Do you remember during COVID? So this is a UK thing, but internationally there may be similarities. There may be precedents set in your country as well. Do you remember when there was one particular, and I don't want to mention their name, there was one particular wedding group of companies who were told that they couldn't charge either, was it the deposit or the balances, but for work that they hadn't actually exercised, they hadn't actually performed.
They wouldn't refund deposits, would they? And they wouldn't transfer deposits to new dates. Yeah. I think that was what happened.
Was that what it was? And then this whole thing about you having to only charge the work that you've actually done.
Yeah.
So did that cover balances as well?
No, I think it was just deposits. So it was the competitions, what they called the competitions and something or other
commission,
department.
Wasn't it? Commission.
Yeah. So somebody took that company. I know who you're on about. Took that company to court and said, they're keeping our deposit. And so the competitions rulings got involved. They said no. You can keep some of the deposit, but you can only keep what you can prove that you've actually worked on. So if all that happened was they sent you an email and said, I want a book, and you said, great, the deposit, because it's, big deposits for venues, your deposit is £4,000. They pay the £4,000 and then nothing else happened. COVID came along and then the client said, I want my £4,000 back. Then the venue could reasonably say, well, everything else that goes with booking that and everything took us 2 hours,
okay.
So
it had to be
maybe a couple of £100.
Reasonable amount of work.
Yeah.
So is this, and my final question on this, I think I've danced around quite well with this one. The final question is this a lesson to us to charge larger deposits? Because I, in my business, have always gone down the smaller deposit route because I want to collect a larger balance at the tail end of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of that stuff that's gone before has had an impact on my choices there. I charge a small deposit as well. I charge £200.
Yeah.
And for the same reason, I like to have the money nearer the time rather than at the beginning. And I mean, of course, the COVID thing, I was very lucky in that I think I returned 2 deposits for people who said, no, we're just, that's it, that's the end. I didn't have to return the deposits, but I did just because I felt bloody sorry for them for everything that was going on.
Yeah.
But because they were only £200, I know a lot of people, well, I say a lot, I know a handful of people who during when the COVID thing hit, were in a lot of financial strife because they took 50% deposits. And that's a lot of money to give back if you haven't kept that deposit. I always keep my deposits in a savings account, and then once the wedding's done, I kind of move it across. So always it's there just in case it needs to go back to them. But a lot of people didn't do that. They'd already spent the money, and then suddenly the client's like, can we have our £1,500 back or £1,000?
That's become what they call dead money, isn't it?
That's hard work. Yeah.
All right. Well, there we go. I'm hoping that's helped the person that had the conversation with me. I hope.
Yeah, me too.
Compassion.
Whoever it is.
Compassion is really important, though, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I suppose Alan Sugar would say, there's no compassion in business. You're fired. But I do think compassion's important. I'm a great believer in karma. What goes around, comes around, comes around, goes around.
Yeah, I agree with that. Totally. Yeah, totally.
Right, let's have a question then. Have you got one from the Book of Face from Facebook?
Yeah, I'm just reading the news. You remember Coolio? Do you remember Coolio from Gangster?
Yeah, I read that only about an hour ago.
Yeah, he's died.
Big part of my growing up musically.
I used to love Gangster's
Paradise, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was one of the most played songs, I think, of the breakfast show that I presented. That one was not Coolio again, is it?
Yeah. It's probably one of the most the introduction to that song they did is probably the most.
It's been sampled a lot.
Sampled one ever. Yeah, it's in lots of things. All right, so questions. Rob Wiskin, the latest one is not a question. This is a direct dig at me. Question for Kevin. Should I edit my pictures on my iPhone, or should I get an iPad, a MacBook, an iMac, or just not bother and listen to music on my iPod with my AirPods?
All right, clever clogs.
Yeah. I'm having to go way back now to find questions. Let's have a look. Here's one from Daniel Kiss, and he says, Kevin, can you give, I don't know why he's directing it directly at me, can you give SEO advice for wedding photographers?
Well, I know why he's asked you that, because you're an expert above me on anything to do with that.
He says, your website is a good example, and I have seen you place Pinterest images instead of uploading them directly. Video is another good content piece. Any more secret advice?
Do you still do Pinterest?
No, I don't. I was gonna answer that as part of the thing. So, well, SEO advice is, it's not something we can just answer in a salient way in a couple of minutes from the show. But the Pinterest thing, for example, I don't have a Pinterest account, but I do. Squarespace enables the Pinterest hover thingamajiggy, so I do encourage and more than happy for people to pin my stuff. I probably do have an old Pinterest account that when Pinterest was a thing.
On that account, then, on that count, if when they're pinning your pictures, would a watermark? I know you have one that just says Mullins, which is great. But would there be an advantage to having an actual website address? It
links. So when somebody pins a picture from your website to Pinterest, if somebody then clicked on that picture in Pinterest, it'll come back to your website.
Right. Okay,
yeah, that's the whole point of it. That's why that's good.
Spot the geezer what didn't know how Pinterest worked.
Yeah, I don't like Pinterest. Is not it's not an interesting place for me to be. But it is good because actually the SEO juice from Pinterest is strong.
Is it?
But very, very briefly, I'll say what I always say about SEO. Don't think of it as SEO, right? So SEO stands for search engine optimization. Don't even think of search engine optimization. Think of your clients. You don't want to be optimizing your website for the search engines. If you optimize your website for client experience, then you will do better in the search engines. So a lot of people still kind of go down the rabbit hole of chasing backlinks and over optimizing their pages with keywords and all of that kind of stuff with the hope that you're going to get higher up on the search engines, which hopefully you will. But ultimately, fresh content, regular content, that's really important. It has to be regular, and it has to be designed to be easy to navigate, easy to flow through your website, information. So there has been a major update to Google in the last couple of weeks, in fact, where it's now, although this has always been, not always, but more recently has been a thing where Google wants more content that is action in things. So, for example, top 10 tips to book a wedding photographer, that kind of thing is great for Google these days. But ultimately, that's not a particularly good thing to put on a wedding website because, you're just giving people the route to finding other photographers. But the idea, ultimately, you want to do fresh content. It's hard as a wedding photographer because your content is generally a blog post about a wedding, and often they're very similar, which does make it really difficult for us. But, as I said, really optimized for people, not for the internet. Fresh content, regular content, that's the key. Answer questions if you can.
I'm looking at yours, actually. This is so in the past, I know we've talked about this over and over, but there's always new people coming to the party. So in the past, we've said Google really wanted to move away from I'm a Berkshire wedding photographer who loves Berkshire weddings, and if you're ever in Berkshire, I that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I've just chose one of your latest ones from your website. Yeah. kevinmullinsphotography.co.uk and stories. Beautiful East Norcastle wedding photography for Laura and Max. That's about as SEO-ish as you want to be. And then you started by talking about the castle, which is an interesting twist on this. It was a sweltering July day when Laura and Max got married at the magnificent East Norcastle, which you've hyperlinked to. East Norcastle, Eastnor, is in Herefordshire. Was built for the first Earl Somers, who employed Robert Smirke as his architect. That's interesting because you've hyperlinked to a wiki about Robert Smirke.
Yeah, so you want to be giving information back, essentially. So if people think with Robert Smirke, I'm helping them out by giving them an option to go and look at that content. Yeah, Google wants you to be giving information to people, as well as obviously you need to, that whole thing about I'm a Berkshire wedding photographer in Berkshire, etc. Yes, you need to be super, super careful about all of that stuff. But ultimately, you do need to also let Google know that you are a wedding photographer in Berkshire, and you need to do that somehow.
It's a fine line, isn't it, now? Because you want to be seen to be writing in normal English or French or German or whatever.
Absolutely.
Not in Googleese.
No, just move away from all of that idea.
Yeah.
Write a piece of content that you would think. So in that case, I've written a piece of content that I hope will be helpful to people who are looking for either a wedding at Eastnor Castle or a wedding photographer at Eastnor Castle. And that post now, if I look in a private browser for Eastnor Castle wedding photography, it ranks 3rd on Google.
Wow.
Which is good.
That is good.
Just below the actual Eastnor Castle.
So let nobody ever say, if that's correct English, that having a blog post on Squarespace don't do the business, because that clearly does, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. No, the whole Squarespace WordPress doesn't matter. It's a CMS. The CMS is irrelevant. It's CMS content management system.
Right.
It's just HTML behind the page. That's all that. Google doesn't give a damn what content management system you use.
Yeah.
It's all about content. Yeah.
So, and I've noticed other things you've done here is you've separated some of the pictures with a bit more text. Mm-hmm. So now you talk about the bridal prep. My day started with Laura and her bridal party getting ready in the room overlooking the lake. And there's a few more bits about that. So you are writing differently.
Yeah.
There's definitely a bit of Googleese in there, but you've got to be careful of the amount of it, haven't you?
Yeah. You've got to, so in the titles, you need to get your key phrase effectively. That's ultimately what you want to be doing.
So wedding ceremony at Eastnor Castle is one of your titles. In terms of titles, there's different types of titles you can have, aren't there? There's title 1, title 2, title 3. How do you choose which?
Yeah, they're headings. So heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. It used to be that you should only have one heading, one tag on a page, but actually that's not true any longer. Ultimately, you want to think of that as almost like chapter headings. So your main heading will be the title of the blog post, and then subheadings will be...
Okay, heading 1 is the title of the blog post. Heading 2 is... What's heading 2 then?
So heading 2 might be wedding ceremony. Heading 2 might also be drinks reception. Heading 2 might be cocktail hour. I don't know, whatever. That kind of thing.
Can you go from heading... just because sometimes heading 3 looks visually nicer than heading 2... Is there any? I know this sounds like a daft question, but I think people do. You look at what things look like. Can you have a heading 1 and a heading 3 without a heading 2?
You shouldn't.
Right.
You can, and it probably won't have too much of an impact, but technically you shouldn't. And if your heading 3 looks visually more appealing than your heading 2, then that's a problem with your design. That is something you would need to fix in your design.
Oh, you can choose what size you want your headings anyway, can't you? So that's ridiculous. Okay. Yeah. Well, I think there are some... we've talked so much, Kev, about SEO, without that being a word anymore, or phrase. But there's a few new things I've learned here.
Yeah, well, we did a whole show once on SEO. Maybe we should do another one.
Yeah.
Perhaps. If you want another show on SEO, or what used to be called SEO, let us know, and
we will go and do it.
There we go.
So I don't think that's a bad idea. What is SEO otherwise known as now? Digital marketing? Or?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Content marketing.
Right. Robin Morgan, iconography. Iconography is quite a thing now, isn't it? Once upon a time. What are you talking about? Robin looks after the photographs, the collections for many, many celebrities. The conversation today covers that, but also, and I don't think that will be this week. In part 2, I think we're going to talk about that thing that that you've been trying to get your head around. Non-fungible tokens, NFTs.
Oh my God. I'm too old for that.
You're not too old. It's a real thing. It's here to stay, and it's not just about silly pictures that people have uploaded of their kids that they, like a line drawing that they now think is worth £3 million. It's not like that. So we're going to have a conversation about. I think that'll be in part 2. We'll do that one, so you really get to understand what NFTs are. But today I want to talk with Robin about iconography, about pictures of the stars, their worth and their collections, and why it's important to protect them. 18 years at the helm of the Sunday Times magazine, starting out along what would have been considered a more traditional path, that being local photojournalism, which for you was the bright lights of the Evening Echo in Hemel Hempstead. And as I look at you now, I see a wry smile. And I'm hoping...
Even before that.
Oh, what was it before that then?
The County Express in Worcestershire. Age 16, left school, left home, and got the first job as a trainee reporter, and the rest is history, as they say.
In Hemel Hempstead isn't so far away from my stamping ground when I started out with some work experience at a newspaper I'm sure you're aware of called the Hertfordshire Mercury.
Oh, no, well, not a weekly newspaper.
Yeah.
In the days when there were weekly newspapers with staff journalists covering everything from the cattle markets to the local magistrates'
Well, that was it. I mean, it was my first experience of being sat in a courtroom thinking, well, I hope I don't end up here on the business end of it. It is a sort of lamented ground now, isn't it, that the industry has changed, that reporters such as yourself would not have had that opportunity so readily now.
Well, I think that's why, I quit journalism after 40 years. I mean, I'd done almost everything I could do in print media, from being a reporter to a foreign correspondent, investigative journalist, editing the inside team of the Sunday Times, then moving on to the magazine. After a while, you stop living out of a suitcase covering war zones and the like, and you edit the magazine. And after nearly 20 years of editing the magazine, the print industry is in such decline. And as a journalist, you always want to move on to the next thing. You're only as good as your next story. And for me, managing decline in the print industry held no joy anymore. Yeah. So that's why I quit 10 years ago. And I was writing books. I had a 3-book deal with HarperCollins in New York. And an old friend of mine, Terry O'Neill, who was a photographer I employed on numerous occasions at Sunday Times magazine, was a little bit broke. And I helped him organise a couple of exhibitions. And it occurred to me that there was a business there. Yeah. We worked out of a basement in Mayfair, London, with 100 boxes of negatives. I called it negative equity. I said to Terry, there's money in these boxes. We've proved that with a couple of exhibitions in London. Yeah. Let's expand it and let's invest time and energy in doing this. And Terry, of course, was at the end of his career. Photographers weren't really earning decent money anymore. So he gave me, he just basically let me take the lead and gave me my head. So we started off by investigating all the negatives in the boxes. And every time we sold a print, we invested the money in scanning and digitizing his archive. Because the model for me was very simple. It was like the music industry. If you write a hit song, it goes to number one, you make money. Somebody covers it, you make money. And it seemed to me there was a dozen different ways of making money out of a great negative. But the key to it was digitizing and scanning the entire archive so that we can investigate that archive for opportunities, not just in terms of exhibitions. We expanded to a dozen and then 24 galleries around the world, flying around the world, opening exhibitions, which coincided with a huge growth in photographic art and the appeal of photographic art, which went from virtually zero to nearly 8% of the art market within 5 or 6 years. But we were investing the money in digitizing and scanning that archive so that we could actually answer the call, if you like, from everything from the fashion and apparel industry that wanted one of Terry's great photographs on a T-shirt or a tote bag to jewelry ranges. We even recently created a brand with a famous distiller, putting famous photographs.
That's right.
On the whiskey bottles, on a collectible whiskey.
Not any old whiskey. It has to be 55 years old whiskey.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why the pictures were important. Every picture that was selected was from 55 years ago to celebrate that great year. Yeah. So it kind of it got to the point where we were doing really quite well out of our basement, just Terry, myself, and an intern. When Terry decided he needed a payday, he wanted out. So I put some investors together. We purchased his archive, and the investors loved the business model and put the money up on the condition that I grew the business and added more photographic archive. And the word was already out there with other photographers that what we were achieving for photography and for photographers was something that they wanted to buy into. And so we started to collect photographers and representing them, and then plowed more of the profits into buying other archives. And then suddenly out of the blue, a major American company, ABG, $15 billion company, loved what we were doing and bought out the investors, who were more than happy. They had a fabulous return on their investment.
I'm sure they did. I want to come back to Terry in a little while, because of the famous cigar smoking Brigitte Bardot picture
with a cigar.
Probably one of the most iconic images. Well, one of the most iconic images for me. I've seen it as a large scale print at a very nice boutique hotel, and quite a few years ago. But actually, that does bring back the question of art that gets stolen, because a lot of photographs do appear on T-shirts. I was speaking to a rap photographer probably last year, maybe a little bit longer, who said, my problem is that Instagram, he said, it was all stolen, and I see it on T-shirts a lot. How do you even begin to protect iconic art?
It's becoming easier and easier. I mean, going back to the start of this business, digitizing and scanning everything in the early days of the digital world, you could impregnate an image with a pixel that would identify it, and then you could search for it on the internet. But these days, with Google Reverse Image and the ability to police your copyright, we outsource to two companies. One company spends all of its time identifying use on the internet and supplies us with a file on a weekly basis of its use around the world, be it on an eBay T-shirt or on a newspaper or a magazine. And then we check that list, what's legitimate and what isn't. And when we discover what isn't legitimate, we hand it over to copyright lawyers who pursue the claim for us and take 40% of the revenue. You know, there's a 14-year-old kid in his bedroom, knocking off a couple of T-shirts a week to make a few bucks. You don't pursue and harass those kids. But major copyright infringement, you do pursue. And the interesting way the law works, I mean, for instance, in America, in California, if somebody steals your image and uses it to promote their product, then there's a maximum fine of up to $140,000 every time it's used in social media. So having good lawyers, it's becoming a boom business for lawyers as well to pursue copyright infringement. Obviously, they cherry pick what's worth going after and what isn't. But it's becoming easier and easier and easier because the technology changes on an almost daily basis.
Of course, we think of celebrities as very guarded, and I know iconic photography goes further than celebrities, but let's deal with the celebrities for the moment. Perhaps they are now more than they once were. I mean, let's come back to this iconic image of cigar-smoking Bardot, for example, which is a wonderful picture by Terry. But they're the kind of images that perhaps would not have happened so much now. I think celebrities have become far more guarded over their image. And some of these wonderful images, the Monroe images, the Muhammad Ali ones, they would be far more shall I use the term stage managed now?
More than that, controlled. I mean, financially controlled. I mean, I saw this through 20 years of the magazine. There was a time when I could say I wouldn't put Tom Cruise on the cover of my magazine unless I got a certain amount of time interviewing him. And a photographer in the studio to take that shot. In the digital age, what happened is that the photographers took over the management of their own image through their lawyers and their accountants and their management companies. So that more and more the magazines were being told, we will select the photographer, we will select the photographs you can use. It's something I always refused to do. I got a little bit mischievous and cheeky and said, look, if you don't choose the photographer I want, we'll just do a caricature and you won't like it.
Really?
Oh, yeah. But it got to the point where it was almost impossible. I mean, one of the reasons I quit journalism, you couldn't do decent quality journalism anymore. I mean, today I think that magazines will email questions to a Hollywood celebrities management, and they will get emailed answers back and construct an interview from that. And they will get emailed photographs back. It's called marketing, not journalism. And that's one of the reasons I got out.
There's a lack of spontaneity too. It's difficult to know.
The other problem, of course, is the celebrities caught on to the fact that they could employ the paparazzi rather than evade them. And it was very funny. Terry and I were at an exhibition in Los Angeles about 7 or 8 years ago, and our Uber driver to the airport had been the head of a paparazzi agency in Los Angeles, employing 12 paparazzi, and now he was driving an Uber. Because, I mean, for the past 10 to 15 years, the major celebrity control their faces. They'll send their favorite paparazzi, a fax or an email in the morning saying this is where we'll be and this is what we're wearing and this is how you can capture us. You will send the photographs to us. We'll select the ones you can put out, and we'll take 50 or 75% of your revenue.
Well, in fact, that's been going on for years. I mean, it's 25, 30 years ago, a friend of mine, Steve, who I knew through the BBC, who regularly flew to the Caribbean to go and make the pictures hiding behind something.
Absolutely.
To gather images that looked like they'd been papped when there'd been anything but.
That's why the paparazzi are out of work unless they're employed by the management of famous people.
It's difficult to know where to place this question, as I want to talk about your life and iconic images over and above your time. I mean, we could do a whole interview on your time with the magazine, clearly. But when you left as editor, you'd seen a redesign of the magazine. You'd built up a team of very established writers. You certainly left on a high from all the reading that I've done about that period of your life. And then the Sunday Times magazines, all the magazines, the Sunday magazines changed. And there are some photojournalists in particular who lament to move to a more celebrity-based approach, that now the magazines have moved away from news and it is about celebrity. And I wonder what the fascination with celebrity and the icon is that we have, that removed the photojournalism of, look, I'm going to think of an obvious one, like a McCullin, away from that news, and it became a very different beast.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons I got out. The fact that I could send a Tom Stoddart or a Don McCullin abroad for 3 months to cover a story, and the fact that budgets would no longer sustain that. But the truth is that we have seen a massive change, social, political, commercial change. Celebrities are now influencers.
Yeah.
And the fact that a major celebrity can literally charge $1 million to post on their Instagram page an image of themselves that maybe surreptitiously holding a certain shampoo or perfume, and they're paid $1 million for that. I mean, that's a direct result of the fact that certainly the major magazines, Condé Nast, Vogue, and others, moved away in the 90s from models and modeling fashion clothes to celebrities modeling fashion clothes. And you saw it with the slow, inexorable death of great magazines like Life. Went from to a monthly and then a quarterly, and now it's just a celebratory sort of collectible that's published a few times a year. Or Time magazine, it's celebrity culture is there, but my attitude to the media and celebrity culture is very simple. Everything's a cycle. The wheel will turn, and I suspect you will find that over the next 10 years, people will turn away from that and turn back to a more sophisticated, intelligent, and detailed print media. It may be that they'll be paying, $15, $20 for a great magazine once a week that tells them everything they need to know in detail. But I think the daily newspapers has been left behind, and they become more and more comics. Certainly in my day, when I started the Sunday Times in the late 70s, right through to the 90s, 5% of the newspaper was opinion. Now, if you pick up a newspaper today or read it online, you'll find that probably 40 or 50% of his opinion. Opinion's cheaper. You don't have to send a journalist anywhere. They sit at the desk and they write. You
mentioned that when you worked with Terry, obviously that was the kickstart for the business. You were able to look through his images and help him. He helped you, but you also employed, I think, and the number I saw was 16. Might well be more staff to help you track down images that will one day be iconic. And I wonder where on earth you even managed to start doing that, because it's not like the classic Vivian Mayer story where somebody just finds a box of photographs at a garage sale. You were essentially being detectives.
Yeah, and we still are. And it's, we started out with myself and Terry and an intern. We grew from, the three of us. Terry was just there really to give us information about the time or the date a photograph was taken. Yeah. We grew to 5 staff. And then when we started to energize and monetize the business in a significant way, I could hire more. Editorial is still a vital part of our business. For instance, in terms of scanning and handling and archiving the negatives, I chose young photographers who knew how to work with negatives and respected them. I hired journalists to help me track them down. That wasn't too difficult. My deputy is Carrie Kanya, who is my publisher at HarperCollins in New York. That sort of editorial expertise and the knowledge and the fact that we all Carrie and I and others have great contacts we can call upon.
Yeah.
We're currently tracking down one of the great lost archives. A man called Anthony Beecham, who was Winston Churchill's son-in-law, who sadly died in 1957, and his archive has been lost for decades. And then out of the blue, through word of mouth, somebody had heard about us, and they walked in with a cardboard box full of 300 original negatives of Anthony Beecham's.
Oh, my word.
So we're now scouring the internet and putting the feelers out there to build on that and to accumulate this lost archive in conjunction with the family. And it's amazing what you can achieve with the right technical expertise. I mean, that's the beauty of this current environment we work in, is the ability to, I'll give you an example. We recently found a photograph of the Beatles taken by Terry, which is a fabulous shot that's going to earn a significant revenue for us going forward. And it was in a crumpled old newsprint magazine from 1963. Our ability to scan that crumpled, pixelated, black and white image, creased and piece of old newsprint, and then work it on the computer to bring it and restore it back to its original quality, was a couple of days' work. I mean, what we're working with now, which is really interesting, is we're taking still images. I call them still images, still photos that move. So we're animating still photographs. I can take one still photograph and turn it into a 3-minute video.
So I don't know why I'm thinking of this image straight away, and I'm not sure whether it's part of your archive or not, but I'm thinking of Yusuf Karsh with the Winston Churchill picture. I always think of this as an iconic picture. But that as an animated piece of art across 3 minutes, is that possible?
Yeah, I could take that. I mean, I employ my old design director, Steve Reed, from the magazine, who's a genius at design. He can do everything from a book, but he can take that photograph of Winston Churchill Karsh and literally in a couple of hours' work, he can have the cigar smoking with the end of it, puffing away, with the cinders smoking away, with Winston. We know the story behind the photograph, of course. He was so angry at Karsh for taking his time that he was scowling at Karsh.
Yeah.
Particularly when Karsh told him to take the cigar out of his mouth.
Well, he whipped it out of his mouth, didn't he?
He whipped it out of his mouth.
Yeah.
And caught the scowl of Winston Churchill. But I can animate that so that Churchill goes from a scowl to a wink while his cigar's smoking away.
So that's creating stories. That's
And that's the next step for us. The fact that I have 5 rolls of medium format film in my digitized now of, say, David Bowie in the studio for an album shoot. We could animate that with the new technology that's coming through. Within 5 years, I'll be able to turn that into a 15-minute to a 30-minute video.
And Robin Morgan returns in a couple of weeks. Every fortnight, Kev. It's not bi-monthly anymore. Every fortnight.
2 weekly sized ships.
Drinks reception. Right, questions. Oh, this is probably a good time to appeal for you to send them in. I know that, how many years have we been doing this now? 3 years. Not every question has been asked, and the show really relies upon your questions. It's a Q&A show with a small Q or a large Q. So send them to us. There's 2 ways you can get them to us. Click at fujicast.co.uk. Click at fujicast.co.uk. Or, the other way, Kev, is on and through Facebook.
Indeed. In the Facebook group, search for FujiCast. Join the group. There's about, 2,500, 3,000 people in there now.
No,
very nice people, every single one of them.
Yeah.
And there's a pinned thread at the top where you can pop your questions in, and they are the ones that will be answered on the show. In theory.
What do you mean in theory?
Well, there's some that I haven't got round to.
Oh, okay.
Some are very similar to other ones, so, we just I manage it. It's all right.
No such thing as a daft question, no such thing as an old question, because there's always somebody new. And as we learned in the last bit with digital marketing, there's always new twists and turns to be learned along the way as well.
Yeah.
And you're right, we should do a digital marketing week. So let us know if you would like us to do that. And I think the best way to do that will be to send us some specific questions and some areas that you really would like us to tackle. Yeah. I have one that's ongoing at the moment, which by the time you hear this, hopefully will be sorted. Guess who forgot to renew his security certificate? Kev?
Are you asking for a friend?
No, I'm asking for me on that one. What an idiot. Oh. While I was sampling the fine red wines of the chateaux of France, My security certificate was running out. And why is a security certificate necessary, Kev?
Well, a security certificate is necessary because it tells Google and Bing and all the other search engines that you have a well-behaved domain that is handling cookies correctly and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it was implemented by Google first, and then it became a requirement for your site to be ranked on Google. And now if people go to a website that doesn't have an active SSL, then they will get the big red exclamation mark that says, don't go any further. This site is not secure.
Oh, I know. And there's no ranking going on in my life, if you pardon the phrase at the moment.
It's a big bad thing.
Will I get a black mark for this?
I would say probably if you deal with it soonish, no.
Right.
And the reason for that is because your website hasn't been updated in a long time, so Google probably doesn't come around very often to have a look at it.
Right.
If your website was a very active, busy website, then yes, it would have an impact quicker.
Right. Well, this is the jump I need to move it very quickly to the Squarespace one that I've been working on, isn't it?
It is.
Because if you have a Squarespace site, you don't have to worry about any of that kind of thing, do you?
Oh, SSL is just part of the Squarespace.
All part of the package, all part of the party. So there we go. That's a kick up the backside. And if you need to look after your security certificate, get it sorted. Don't ignore the emails and think, I'll do that next week. I'll do that the week after.
And worse still, when you do get the email, don't ring up Kev and say, I've had this email, what do I need to do? And then I explain it, and then you say, oh yes, well, I must do that before I go to France, and then not do it.
I did. Yeah, you were quite right. In fact, I remember where I was. I was on the M25. That bit where you go, you know that bit, you know that stretch where it just goes.
Oh, I hate that. Yeah,
it's the old concrete stretch.
Rumble strips.
Yeah, I don't know if it's rumble strips. I think it's just the original part of the M25 that's still left. It's like antique. And just, it's the most not, you can never have a phone call, but I remember calling you and saying, Kev, what do I do about the SSL certificate? Oh dear. Oh, get it sorted, Kev. Right. Questions. Shall we go to the Book of Face first of all?
Yeah. So Luke Warwick says, X100V, is there a way to customize a button straight to video, or do you have to go through the drive button every time? The answer is no. You have to go through the drive button every single time.
I know.
And I'll go on to another question because that was a quickie.
Is there, by the way, because you won't believe I'm still doing it, is there, because on every other body there seems to be a way to quickly do a format. Is there a shortcut to a format on X100V?
Yeah, there's like a combination of button.
Do you know what the combination is, or are you still doing it like I am?
Off the top of my head. Yeah, not off the top of my head.
I still go through the menu and I keep thinking I must look up how to do this because this is daft.
Yeah, I normally stick it in my mind menu. My mind menu. You can set up your own my menu, which then becomes my menu. In your case, it'll be your my menu.
Yeah. Can I just have Kev's menu? I prefer Kev's
menu. My menu, yeah.
Can you send your my menu to my menu?
Yeah. And
we'll share my menus.
We'll have a X100V love fest. I'll swap. You can have a bit of my menu.
All right. Right, another question, since that one was so easily sorted.
Okay, so Jarell Gates says, hi Neil, hi Kev, question for Yal.
Yep.
When it's quitting time at a wedding, do you go and say a big, long, dramatic goodbye to the bride and groom and give them a hug and kiss and shed tears over parting with them? Or just disappear without a trace? Or is it something in the middle? I always ask if they have any other photos they want to get when it's about 30 to 40 minutes till my end time. Then come say congratulations, give them a big hug or handshake and good night. But I'm curious how you handle it.
Wow,
we've had this before. I got in a bit of trouble for my answer.
Did you? Well, I'll tell you what I do. In the conversation I have with a couple, there's a lot of wedding questions this week. It's just the way it goes, by the way, sometimes. But when I have my conversation with couples prior to the actual day itself, so I do a little Zoom get together. It's only about 20 minutes. And the last thing I say right at the end is, now I know, and it's almost word for word this, now I know this sounds a bit strange, but at the end of the night when I've told the story, when I've done the half an hour to 1 hour dancing or whatever the contract says that I'm doing, when I get to that point, don't worry if I don't come and say goodbye. I know my place in life. I'm there to tell your story. I say it just like this, tell your story. And the last thing you need is some idiot photographer with a Shakespearean tragedy coming across. I'm going now, and sort of announcing it to the room, and they usually laugh, and that's fine, because I don't want to get involved in long, elongated goodbyes. I've told my story. I've got it. And the next time you'll hear from me is when all the pictures are ready to see.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. I don't have the Zoom conversation with them, but it is in the notes that I send them before the wedding. At the end of the day, I'll just disappear into the night and you won't notice that I was even there unless I've left something behind, in which case I'll have to go back and get it. Yeah, same thing. I don't want to go. I'm just thinking back to the last couple of weddings. They were both midnight finishes.
Yeah.
They were both, they were well into kind of bopping away on the dance floor. Yeah. I'm not going to go and disrupt all of that kind of stuff. So no, I'll just disappear. Of course, if I'm getting ready to go and they come up to me, or I pass them on the way out,
yeah, of course, then
I'll say,
yeah.
But the last thing I would do is say, "Now, are you sure we've got all the pictures?" That I would never say. I have to say. Now, of course, if you're more of a kind of group shot type photographer, editorial, then perhaps it's a valid question, but I wouldn't open that can of worms.
I don't know. Even at 9:30 at night when it's gone dark, you've lost all that useful, beautiful light that you had for doing the wonderful group shots earlier. That you say, have you got anything more? Oh yeah, we got that large one we wanted. Auntie Frosty wanted to do that picture with that Auntie Nancy and all. And let me go and find them. It could take me about half an hour.
Auntie Frosty.
I don't know where Auntie Frosty came from. I don't know. Auntie Nancy's your one.
Yeah, I got an Auntie Nancy. Yeah.
Auntie Frosty.
I haven't got an Auntie Frosty.
That's a bit weird. I don't know where that came from.
A couple of ex-girlfriends who are Frosty, but...
No, it's Kev, stop. But no, I think, personally for me, I don't think it's necessary to do elongated big goodbyes. Who needs them? They're dancing, they're enjoying their friends, they're having fun.
Quite right.
Yeah. One from Don Harrington. Hi, Team FujiCast. Team? What team have you got there, Kev, with you?
Me and my Lucozade Energy and my new pen and my new hard drive.
The beating heart of the Mullins Industries. I've just got Barney down here. Hello, darling. Barney's here. It's Team Me. Me and Barnes. You and your hard drive.
Yeah, I have no idea where my dogs are. Probably getting up to no good somewhere.
Question about OIS not working with IBIS. I have the 70 to 300 when used with my X-H2S, XT4 or XS10, the image gets a slight blur or perhaps a false feedback. When used with my XT30 or X Pro 3, it's tack sharp. Any ideas on how to fix this weird phenomenon? The 70 to 300 does not have an option to turn off the optical image stabilizer. Thank you, Don Harrington.
Yeah, I don't know why that would be. So you do have options in the menu to switch off OIS. You can have it set to always on, or you can have it set to just when shooting. Might be worth checking those settings, make sure they're correct. I would only have the image stabilization switched off if I'm on a tripod. But you can't, it sounds like the image stabilization in the lens is counteracting the image stabilization in the camera. But I have been reliably told, I may have been reliably told incorrectly, but I'm fairly sure it's not, that the modern cameras are intelligent enough to understand that if you've got a body that's got OIS and you stick a OIS lens that has it built into the lens, then it will automatically do the wizardry and shindiggery that's needed.
It's like gnomes under the bonnet, that one.
Yeah, but I would check those settings first. It's obviously not a problem with the lens because it's working fine on the other bodies. I suspect it's something like that.
Okay. Right. Book of Face.
The Book of Face says...
no more question.
Tim Clark, I just don't understand the point of all of the EVF and screen settings. If I'm on auto, it just goes dark. So I'm on +4, which surely affects the exposure indirectly. Any advice? I have come from another system where I know what I see in the EVF will match what the photo will look like. Thank you. Okay, so yes, you do have options to brighten the EVF and all of that kind of stuff. I just leave it off, leave it on 0, because you don't want to be looking through the EVF and seeing something that's not real.
No.
The reason why those options are there are because sometimes if you're in like bright sunshine and all of that kind of stuff, for the LCD at least, not so much the EVF. Then that can help. But mine doesn't change. I can't recall actually. I don't have a camera in front of me whether it's auto or 0 is an option for off. But mine certainly doesn't change, doesn't get darker or anything like that. Just keep it on off. That's the best.
Keep it on off. Keep it off.
Keep it on off. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Off on the on switch. Here's one from Jason McPhail in. I love. Have you ever been to Australia, by the way, Kev?
No.
We should put that right one day. I love the place names, though. I get it. Hopefully, won't get this wrong. It's Wollongong in Australia. We're Wollongong. We are Wollongong. Have you ever heard of Wollongong?
Isn't it Wollongong?
Wollongong. Is it Wollongong? Maybe it is. Maybe you speed up on the start of the word. Wollongong.
Wollongong.
Well, anyway, it's in Australia. Hi, Neil. Hi, Kev. Thanks for the show. Love it. Glad you're changing to bi-monthly. In Australia, we say fortnightly. Well, we do now here as well.
Yes.
What's your advice for getting a good exposure when taking photographs of people, some with light skin, some with dark skin, all in the same shot? What do you do with camera settings and also in your post-editing? Very good question. Because, of course, different shades of skin will react in entirely different ways. And actually, sometimes either dark and dark skin different tones or light and light skin different tones. I'll give you an example. When you're taking a photograph and you've got a young child in the in the same sort of group shot for me, then often it's almost like the skin becomes translucent, Kev.
That's because you photograph ghosts.
Maybe that's what's going on. Ghostography. Yeah, very good question, though. Now, you can solve this a little bit if of course, you're using fill-in flash in Wollongong. But I would use evaluative metering for a start. So I wouldn't be spot metering. I'd be using evaluative metering for that particular group shot without a shadow of a doubt. And you may, in post-production, need to lift or drop on either side the exposure of some skin tones.
Yes. Yeah, exactly that. I mean, the best way, of course, would be to use lights, but neither you or I think would do that. And yeah, use the metering, of course, is if you're shooting manually, then you're taking full control of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I never really worry about those situations. And then in post-production, it's something that's usually easily to rectify.
If you're doing group shots, I tend to, when I've got lots of different skin tones, then I tend to make sure that I shoot those particular portraits in the shade. Because you want the light to help you, and you don't want to be fighting. You're fighting the light, as it is sometimes in Australia, I'm sure, with the beautiful quality of density of light that you get. So
that's very true.
That's one to think about. He also had a second part, and it's not so much a question, but it's a story about a highly poisonous spider, which, of course, you get many of in Australia, don't you? I went into my boy's bathroom and saw a redback spider on the wall. I called out to the boys, "How long has the redback been in here?" And my son called back, "Oh, a few months." I said, "Why didn't you kill it?" And he said, "He's my friend."
Yeah, that's fair enough. I wouldn't like the idea of killing the poor thing, but I probably would have moved house instead and left it there.
Yeah, I don't think I'd have left a redback. Well, what happens when he disappears behind the toothbrush? Eh? And you're looking around the back. Where did I put my toothbrush? You put your hand around the back and he's eating
you. Gives me the woolligongs.
Gives me the woolligongs as well. There was a story while I was in Australia, Kev. Have you been to Australia? While I was there was a story in the news of a poor builder. And you know those little builder huts they have, just, obviously when they need to go and spend a penny or more than a couple of pennies. This guy was spending more than a couple of pennies, if you can read between the lines.
Yeah.
And he sat down.
2 pennies.
2 pennies. He was sitting down on the throne with his copy of Wollongong Daily or whatever it was he was reading. And there was a spider underneath the seat. I can't remember if it was a black widow or what's the worst one to bite you, or a redback. Anyway, I think it might have been a redback, and it bit him on the bum.
Ow!
And he had to be taken to emergency, straight to the hospital, because it came up like a real egg, and he was in a lot of pain because they cause a lot of pain. And what's the chances? He goes back to work. And the next week, he's sitting on the throne with the Wollongong Daily again, and a redback bites him straight back on the bum again. Oh. There's obviously something to be learned in that.
That redback's got a fetish.
I think it has. I was wondering if it was the same one. Anyway, right, back to Facebook. Have we got time for any more? Yeah, we've got time for just a couple more questions.
Okay, so we're going way back now. I've answered all these. Matt Seals, another question from Australia, I think, isn't it?
Muscles?
Matt Seals.
Oh, Matt Seals. Right, sorry.
Seals.
You said muscles. Right.
Matt Seals. Sorry, that's my Welsh living language. Yeah. Loving the show, as always. QQ for you. With this year being the 10 years of X-mount anniversary for Fujifilm, what would you both say is the most important camera body and lens released during that time for the development of the X series? That is a good question.
Without a shadow of a doubt, it's got to be the X100s, hasn't it?
Well, yeah, you can approach this in if it wasn't for the first X100, then none of the others would have existed. Yeah. Probably. I would say, I'd probably say the X100 is kind of the most important one that they did. I would say then closely followed by the X Pro, because the X Pro 1 was the one where they really understood that there are people who want to use changeable lenses, and the whole system is something that could grow very quickly from that. Originally, my understanding is the X100 was essentially a test to see if people would buy such a thing. It flew off the shelves,
and they did.
And then they realized actually we could use that sensor in another camera and kind of build on it, and they did. I think there was only 19 of them in the team at that time.
It wasn't called the Fujifilm X100 when it first came out, was it? Was it a FinePix?
It was called FinePix X100, yeah.
And I think it was a massive surprise to them, wasn't it? Just how well it had done.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But without the success of that camera, there will be no Pros and Ts and GFXs.
Yeah, exactly. So in that turn, I would say that the X100, the original Fujifilm FinePix X100, was the most important in the last 10 years of that series.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I've always wondered, by the way, and you might be able to answer this. What Kunio was to the team then? Was he the main designer?
No, Masa-san is the designer. The designer.
Yes, sorry.
Kunio was the marketing brains behind it.
But it was the joint sort of, it was the thing between them though that's responsible for Fujifilm.
Yeah, exactly. And then there was Toshi as well, Toshi Lida, who was the head of digital imaging, who was essentially the one brave enough to get the funding from Fujifilm Holdings to run with this idea. And Toshi is now like super head of almost all of Fujifilm, so he's obviously did his career a world of good.
Yeah. Right, before we have the last question, which isn't so camera related, so I'm going to try and find, we might want to do a QQ from Facebook as well. We should mention our friends at PickTime again, pick-time.com, who are kindly supporting this show. And if you go to pick-time.com and you're checking out, as it were, that sounds a bit serious, then if you use the word FujiCast, is it all in?
It is all in capitals, I think. Letters,
then you will get 1 month off, won't you? 1 month free, rather. 1 month free for your first subscription. And we talked earlier about the beauty of being able to set anniversaries, which I think is a really great idea, Kev. That's what I'm going to be doing for my next week. Once I've sorted out the SSL.
I think you need to sort out your website first.
Sort that out.
And then you can look at the automations in PickTime, because they are absolutely amazing.
What other automations do you use? Because there are other automations, aren't there?
So I do a 10-day initial, when the gallery goes live, for any of the guests that log on, they get a 10% discount code straight away that's valid only for 10 days, first 10 days. And so when they register and then they get their password and all that kind of stuff, it will send them this code, and it will also appear as a banner in the gallery saying, you've got 10 days at this code to buy prints or whatever you're going to buy. Yep. And you get your 10% off. They're the two that I mostly use, but you can do all kinds of stuff.
Here's a thought as well, because it's unlimited, isn't it, with the amount of galleries you can put up?
It depends on your subscription level.
That's true. But if you get the right subscription level, it's unlimited. So I have the unlimited. Yeah. It's a really, really good cloud backup for your work, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I if ever I need to get images from a wedding, because I have all of my weddings on there now, I've migrated them all from my old provider. Yeah. So if I need to dig into a wedding from 2015, I don't go looking around my hard drives. I go to PickTime and I just pull down the images that I need.
which is amazing. So you've gone back in time with it. Now, was there a way of uploading that more quickly than having to sit there and do them all individually?
Yep. So PicTime, if you're a subscriber to PicTime, you can, I think it's $1 a gallery.
Right.
Let's just say you've got another provider and you've got, in my case, I had 350 odd galleries I wanted to move across.
Blimey.
So I did them on a yearly basis. So I filled in the form. There's an online form. You fill it in and you tell them which galleries. You have to give them the password to your old provider. And then they just go and do it all for you.
Brilliant.
And they create a new gallery for you. Yeah, it's brilliant. It saves so much time.
So go to pick-time.com. When you go to the checkout, put FujiCast, all uppercase letters, and then you get 1 month free. Can I
check it out? It really is amazing, and I know they are supporting the show.
Yeah,
but as we've said many times, Neil and I have been using it for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. One from Dublin. Oh, that's a great place to go for photography, isn't it? Dublin.
It's a fair city.
It is a fair city. This is from David McCormack. I'm a long-time listener, but this is the first time I felt I had a question of such significance to justify writing in, and it's one for me really. And actually, it kind of crosses the boundaries of both the podcasts that I do. What are your thoughts on the outcome of the Garibaldi Biscuit Challenge on the Great British Bake Off? You came to mind immediately when they announced the challenge. As an indisputable aficionado of this divisive biscuit variety. I didn't watch that one. So there we go. There's the answer to that. But you can't. I tell you what, you can't beat Tesco's own Garibaldi biscuits. They are just the right amount of sugar, just the right amount of crunch, just the right amount of dead flies. Done. Do you like Garibaldi's?
Yeah, I think so. I can't really think the last time I had one, but yeah, I like anything with sugar in it. I've got a real sweet tooth. I'm not so keen on the Sainsbury's one, which for me is a bit more, I'm sorry, this is just a personal thing. I'm sure there are many people that love their variety, just a bit cardboard for me. But this is not a show about Garibaldi's. Yours sincerely, a one-time and long-time Canon user, followed by a short dalliance with Sony, and now happily settled with a GFX and XT3 system. Just to bring it back to something related to the show. Lots of love from David. We should go over to Dublin, sample. Never mind the Garibaldi's, sample some of the fine Guinness. Have you got one final QQ that you can go with, or are we done? Because you've. Let me see if there's a quick question. I'm making it not very quick now, have I? No.
That really is it. After all that, I thought I can edit some of this stuff out. When you were doing
more questions.
When you were doing the that reminded me of the sound that the aircraft makes when you land. You know, when there's something going on underneath. The gnomes are pulling in the pulling in the what do they call it? Not the stabilizer. The bit. I should know this. Being a flyer. The bit of the wing that gives you more lift.
Flaps.
Flaps, thank you.
I already said it.
I didn't hear you first time. That's what I thought you were doing anyway. That's it for another week. In a couple of weeks' time, Robin Morgan will return and we will get behind non-fungible fungible tokens so that Kev, at long last, understands them and maybe one day will even move into them. But at this point, let's make this very clear. There won't be a couple of weeks' time. Do you know how many times over the last 3 years have we said this, Kev? If you don't get your questions in, and there's an easy way to do that. Well, there's two easy ways. You can send them in to the email address, which is click@fujicast.co.uk. click@fujicast.co.uk. There could be questions about your social photography, technical stuff. Kev does the tech stuff so well. There can be questions about... What did we say? Did we say the website? Search engine optimization?
Anything, yeah. Personal questions, business.
Garibaldi's, for heaven's sakes.
Garibaldi's.
Yeah. Or you can send them in via our amazing Facebook group. And how do you do that, Mr. Mullins?
Go to Facebook, FujiCast Facebook group, and pinned thread at the top.
Do you know we're just about to get our 1 millionth download? Did you know that, Kev?
Ooh.
1 millionth. I wish we were able to identify who that 1 million would be. I know.
So we could give them a prize.
I know. That's what I was thinking. Would be quite fun to do that. Anyway, look, you've got to get to the airport. You're off. Yep. You're off. You are to Norway. I hope you enjoy it.
Oh, I hope I enjoy it too. I'm sure I will. The wedding will be lovely. But as usual with these types of things, there's always stress getting there.
Well, you've got to do your 4-hour drive at one end.
Drive, yeah.
You'll be right. Yeah.
Let's say it's that. Either side, really. I've got to get Gatwick, I've got to park, I've got to get on the bus, get on the plane, pick my hire car up, drive, shoot the wedding, and then do everything in reverse.
Don't do what I did on the final day of leaving France. It was early in the morning. I pulled out onto the road. It was raining. I was feeling a bit tired. I had a 12, 14-hour drive ahead of me, and I pulled out the wrong side of the road, Kev. Ooh, I deserve my hoot and flash for that one. I really did. Be safe out there, Kev.
Bye-bye.
Speak to you in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.